Welcome to the meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission for June 17th, 2021. The time is 4:30 p.m. My name is Margot Schaub. I'm the Library Commission Affairs Analyst. As an ongoing reminder, due to the COVID-19 health emergency and to protect library commissioners, staff, and the public, the Library Commission meeting is being held virtually, and members will participate in the meeting remotely. This precaution is taken pursuant to the statewide stay-at-home order and all preceding and proceeding local, state, and federal orders, declarations, and directives. Commissioners will attend the meeting through video conference and participate in the meeting to the same extent as if they were physically present. Public comment will be available for each item on this agenda. Members of the public can observe the meeting using the Webex system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling local 1-415-655-0001 and entering the access code for this specific meeting. The access code for today's meeting is 187-408-2983. To make public comment when connected by phone, please raise your hand by dialing *3 when public comment is called to be added to the queue for the specific agenda item you intend to comment on. Individuals joining by Webex should click raise the hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the participant panel in order to be added to the queue. Best practices for all public commenters are to call from a quiet location, speak clearly and slowly, and turn down your television or radio. Each commenter will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. All public commenters will remain on mute until their line is open. Kenny Avia from Media Services will facilitate this meeting and assist in moderating public comment. Mr. Avia will call upon members of the public by name or by caller number to prompt each attendee who wishes to provide public comment. I will now commence with roll call. Library commissioners in attendance are President Wardell Giarduzzi, Vice President Pete Wong, Commissioners Lee, Mall, Ano, Wolf, and Lopez.
Thank you very much. Hello, and welcome to this meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission on June 17th, 2021. The Ramaytush Ohlone land statement, I will be reading that in its entirety. The San Francisco Public Library acknowledges that we occupy the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that the Ramaytush Ohlone understand the interconnectedness of all things and have maintained harmony with nature for millennia. We honor the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples for their enduring commitment to Warep, Mother Earth. As the indigenous protectors of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. We recognize that we benefit from living and working in their traditional homeland. And as an uninvited guest, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. We recognize to respectfully honor Ramaytush peoples that we must embrace and collaborate meaningfully to record indigenous knowledge in how we care for San Francisco and all its people. That's not the full entirety, but that is the land acknowledgement that we have adopted for our San Francisco Public Library Commission meetings. So I want to thank you, members of the public who are attending this meeting remotely. If you have not done so already, all the materials for this meeting are available for download on Library Commission page of the library's website, which is sfpl.org. That's sfpl.org. We have a total of 5 agenda items today. So we are going to begin with item number 1 on the agenda, and we're going to open it up for general public comment. Members of the public who wish to provide general public comment should now raise their hands in order to be added to the queue. If you are using the Webex interface, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you have called in to the Webex dial-in number at 1-415-655-0001, please press *3 to line up to speak.
Madam Chair, Operations is checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. If you have not already done so, please raise your hand in Webex or press *3 on your phone to be added to the queue. For those already on hold in the queue, please continue to wait until it is your turn to speak.
Operations, are there any commenters in the queue?
Madam President, we have one commenter in the queue.
Thank you. Will you please begin allowing general public comment?
Caller number 5, your 3 minutes begin now.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com or by U.S. Postal Service, P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I'm disappointed to note that what you probably already know as commissioners, you haven't put on the agenda and apparently don't want to discuss or have the public know. But the fact is that the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, the city's official watchdog for open government, met 2 weeks and 1 day ago and found that the commission and the president of the commission, Dr. Mary Wardell Giraduzzi, violated the city's open government law last summer at the remotely held July 9th, 2020 meeting. The task force said that the Library Commission did not provide an opportunity for public comment on its reopening plan to Library Users Association Executive Director Peter Warfield. This was on a complaint that we brought to the task force, literally the day after, actually, the meeting. Excuse me. The Sunshine Task Force also found that the Library Commission, same as before, violated the law by providing access to the meeting for telephone users solely by means of a San Jose-based area code that is a toll call for landline users calling from San Francisco and could also require charges for cell phone users. The Sunshine Ordinance says that public meetings of the Library Commission and any other policy body may not require payment or purchase as a condition of attending. I was rather disappointed to hear from the basically the commission representative a vague reference to technical problems, which I don't believe were ever explained or explicated in any way, and I hope that the Library Commission and the library have looked into what those problems might have been, and any others. I mentioned quite a few at the meeting. There are a number of problems that make big hurdles for participation by the public. I'd also like to report that in my experience of attending the main library, which is now open for browse and bounce, there are a lot of problems, a lot of technical problems. Computers today, for example, were all down. I couldn't even get something on a computer at a reference desk. The new printers appallingly do not have 11 by 18 size copies, and a whole raft of other problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Operations, are there any other commenters in the queue?
Madam President, I have one more commenter in the queue.
Thank you. Would you put the commenter through, please?
Good afternoon.
Grimes, you have 3 minutes. Start now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners and City Librarian Michael Lambert. This is Andrea Grimes, and I am the president of the Librarians Guild, which is a library chapter affiliated with SEIU 1021. I would like to read the following statement into the record. We would like to correct a statement from the city librarian from the March 2021 Commission meeting regarding SEIU 1021 and its participation in the reopening committee. The city librarian shared that it's been a very collaborative process. Though it was our understanding that the reopening committee was intended as a collaboration between labor and management, it failed to meet that charge, and as such, was a missed opportunity to work collaboratively together. SEIU 1021 aspires to work collaboratively with management in future endeavors. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Operations. Are there any other commenters in the queue?
Madam President, there is none at this time.
Okay, let's just wait just a moment to see if anyone else shows up. Just a few more seconds here. Operations, are there any commenters in the queue?
There are no commenters in the queue at this time, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Hearing that there's none, we'll close our general public comment and we'll move on in our agenda. So we are now going to move on to item number 2, and I'm just pulling up my own agenda here, which is the racial equity plan, actually the racial equity resolution, and this is going to be an item for discussion and possible action. So I'm going to turn it over now to our city librarian.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Commissioners. Our Chief Operating Officer, Maureen Singleton, will be introducing this agenda item. As the management team to our Racial Equity Committee, Maureen has been providing great leadership to advance the development and implementation of our Racial Equity Action Plan. The Commission's prospective action this evening to approve a racial equity resolution affirming our institution's commitment to racial equity is an important milestone in our library system's progress to advance racial equity and social justice. So I do appreciate your consideration of this action. Maureen?
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, Commissioners, members of the public, and my library colleagues. My name is Maureen Singleton. I'm your Chief Operating Officer for the library, and I'm so honored to be here today to present the library's proposed racial equity resolution on behalf of the Racial Equity Committee. Today's presentation will cover background, the process to develop our resolution, and then I will hand it over to our Commission President, Dr. Mary Wardell-Garaduzzi, to read the resolution in its entirety before we take public comment and then have Commission discussion and possible action. Next slide, please. So as a way of a little bit of background, the Library Commission approved the SFPL Phase 1 Racial Equity Action Plan on December 17th, 2020. The final document was submitted to the Office of Racial Equity per requirements and posted on our website on December 31st, 2020. Action item 7.1.3 calls on the Commission to adopt a resolution affirming commitment to racial equity and the Racial Equity Action Plan. Next slide, please. So I wanted to walk you through a little bit about the development of the draft racial equity resolution that's before the Commission today for consideration. The effort began with research by our Library Commission Affairs analyst, where she went out and researched existing racial equity resolutions in other city departments as a way to help us build our own library racial equity resolution. She looked at resolutions from the Human Rights Commission, the Environment Department, MTA, Human Services Agency, the Planning Department, as well as the Department on the Status of Women. From there, we drafted a resolution to present to the Racial Equity Committee. They provided some additional feedback, and the Racial Equity Communications team within the Racial Equity Committee refined that feedback and provided edits directly to Margot and myself for refinement and inclusion into the resolution that is before the committee, before the commission today for consideration. Next slide, please. On this slide, you're going to see two key paragraphs from the resolution that really are about affirming the Library Commission's commitment to racial equity and the Racial Equity Action Plan itself. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to our Commission President, Dr. Mary Wardell-Gherarduzzi, to read through the resolution. Mary?
Thank you so much, Maureen, for just the incredible work that you and the team have led us to this particular time. This is just a really phenomenal place to be, and I'm quite privileged to be able to share how far we've come by reading this proposed resolution in its current format. This is the resolution affirming the San Francisco Public Library Commission's commitment to racial equity and support of the San Francisco Public Library's Racial Equity Action Plan. Whereas addressing institutional racism across all levels of government requires leadership and political will, and whereas anti-Black racism, historical ideas that Black people are inferior, laws to keep Black people oppressed, such as segregation and over-policing, which evolved from slave patrols, continue to influence society and government policy and have been the foundation for racism toward other racial groups, and whereas San Francisco's people of color and low-income residents have historically been and continue to be disproportionately experiencing income and wealth inequality, loss of home ownership, housing instability, and overcrowding, leading to less space dedicated to youth educational and recreational activities, worse health outcomes, and other impacts, including lower literacy rates, digital inequities, including access to technology and internet connectivity, which makes a reliance on public services for their needs essential. And whereas San Francisco and other cities across the nation are part of a movement to eliminate institutional racism in partnership with the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, also known as GARE, a national network dedicated to achieving racial equity and advancing opportunities for all. And whereas under Mayor Ed Lee's leadership, the city and county of San Francisco developed a strategic planning framework in which racial equity and inclusion were identified as key priorities for all city operations and departmental services. And whereas the San Francisco Human Rights Commission at its June 25th, 2020 meeting declared anti-Black racism a human rights and public health crisis in San Francisco and called on city agencies to work with the Office of Racial Equity to disaggregate data by race and prioritize racial equity in all programs, train employees to understand anti-Black racism and how it affects individual and population health, acknowledge their complicity in this racist outcomes, work with and center the Black community to dismantle institutionalized racism in all internal policies and practices such as hiring, promotions, leadership appointments, and funding, advocate for and support local, state, regional, and federal anti-racist policies that advance efforts to dismantle systemic racism in order to improve the lives of Black people, require community partners and stakeholders in the education, economic, development, employment, housing, and criminal justice and safety arenas to recognize anti-Black racism as a public health crisis and to activate the above items, secure adequate resources to successfully accomplish the above activities, and create an anti-Black racism program evaluation framework for all city departments and city grantees, where the data must be produced at least every 2 years for the public, as instructed by the legislation that created the Office of Racial Equity. And whereas the library has committed to racial equity and inclusion in its own strategic planning priorities and commits to fostering equity by supporting communities most in need, and is working with an intersectional approach so that all our initiatives are underpinned by a commitment to inclusiveness and accessibility. And whereas the library's partnership with GARE and San Francisco's Office of Racial Equity has given the staff the initial training and tools and support to build the library's organizational capacity to advance racial equity in its programs, policies, and services. And whereas the library has not always looked at service priorities through a racial equity lens, with a stratified branch system characterized by library buildings in affluent neighborhoods and storefront service in communities of color that offered less services. And whereas the library understands this history and the need to be intentional about the implementation of policies to ensure that Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC people are being served. And this involves examining all aspects of library service, including materials, programming, and public services, to make sure they do not perpetuate racial inequities. And whereas the library and library staff, in serving everyone in the community, recognize that this may require extra work, resources, attention, and outreach to historically marginalized communities, which include people of color, immigrants, and those speaking languages other than English, and that true community service involves deliberate relationships with community. And whereas the library reaffirms its intention in fair hiring, training, promotion, and professional development practices to promote racial equity and a culture of belonging. And whereas the Library Commission is committed to addressing systemic inequities within the organization, the city and county of San Francisco, and the broader library community to improve outcomes for all. And whereas the Library Commission passed a Ramaytush Ohlone land acknowledgement on April 15th, 2021, and has begun to establish a relationship with the Ramaytush to elevate American Indian knowledge, concerns, and expertise through materials, public programming, exhibits, displays, both at the library and digitally. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Library Commission reaffirms its longstanding commitment to the principles of access and justice, where communities most impacted are prioritized, and affirms its commitment to racial equity by supporting efforts to integrate racial equity in all the library's programs, policies, and services. And be it further resolved that it shall be the policy of the Library Commission to support the library's efforts to develop and implement a racial equity plan with measurable outcomes that will examine internal, administrative, and operational opportunities for advancing racial equity and ensure that all the library's programs, policies, and services are developed and delivered through a racial equity lens. And be it further resolved that it shall be the policy of the Library Commission to encourage the library to work with other city agencies, cities across the Bay Area, regional agencies, state agencies, federal agencies, and community stakeholders to participate in efforts to define historically underrepresented communities of color and low-income communities, and ensure that these communities have equitable access to funding, regulatory relief, and other services.
Thank you, Dr. Wardell-Ghiarduzzi. Next slide, please. So with that, this concludes our presentation. The Racial Equity Committee, as well as the Library Administration, recommends approval of the proposed racial equity resolution for the library. After public comment, I have the following colleagues with me available to answer questions that the Commission may have. Alejandro Gallegos, Michelle Williams, Jen Wu, Margot Schaub, and of course myself. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maureen Singleton, who has really done a fine job along with the other colleagues. And we'll have an opportunity to hear from the other colleagues shortly in our discussion phase. But right now, we're going to go to public comment on this agenda item, which is the racial equity resolution. Operations, are there any callers in the queue?
Madam President, we have one caller in the queue.
Thank you. Operations, would you put the caller through, please?
Caller number 5, your 3 minutes begin now.
Is that me?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We're independent of any library or any library vendor. We can be reached at Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com and also by U.S. Postal Service at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. First of all, certainly we endorse the direction and many of the details in this resolution, and certainly endorse paying attention to the issues that it raises. I would say that in my view, the library statement here is a little perhaps too generous to the library's existing record with respect to these matters. So, for example, when you talk about examining all aspects of library service, including materials, programming, and public services, we, for example, have given you very strong reports about ways in which you could do some very simple things to greatly improve the access to equal services for everybody. For example, back in February, when we discovered that our unfortunately departed friend and colleague Effie Lee Morris annual lecture was only available virtually. In the past, we had attended, and others in the Coretta Auditorium. We discovered that all the virtual programs, including this one, were simply not available to anybody who didn't have a computer and an email address and access to the internet. And we know from the City and County of San Francisco Digital Equity Strategic Plan for 2019 to 24, which I've quoted many times, there are a lot of people that don't have access to the internet, don't have a computer, and those people disproportionately are most poorly off, as you can imagine. For example, who has high-speed home internet access? The appendix shows Black, 75%, Latino, 78%, Asian Pacific Islander, 85%, White, 92%. So we were shocked to find out that even the person who had put on the program and made publicity for it was not aware that Zoom programs can be attended by telephone. And telephone is pretty much everybody has it. So there is an example of a simple thing you could do, which is publicize telephone access widely. You can also make sure that notices of information about library changes to the service and so on reach mailing list people equally with emailers.
Thank you.
And you could,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you very much. There's a lot you can do.
Thank you. Operations. Are there any further callers in the queue?
Madam President, there are no callers in the queue at this moment.
Okay, let's just wait a moment just to see if another caller is going to come in. Operations, is there any caller in the queue?
Madam President, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, hearing that there's none, we're going to close public comment on this item and move into our commission discussion with a possible action. We have actually a request by our presenters for the commission's consideration to act. And you also have, along with Maureen Singleton, you have other members, as she has earlier commented, that have worked intimately on this resolution. So there's a group of people that can respond to commissioner questions. What I'm trying to do right now, I'm trying to make sure I have that view so I can see commission hands. You have different views here. There they are. So now I can see if any of the commissioners have raised their hand. Oh, okay. We're going to go ahead and ask Commissioner Ono if she would unmute herself and go ahead and make your comment or statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Waddell. I want to thank the committee for all of their work that they have done over the last year and a half, 2 years. It's been through the pandemic, through DSW work. It's been amazing what you guys have done, and it's a great resolution. I totally support it. And again, kudos to you for doing yeoman's work and for keeping up the spirit and for helping us get to where we are right now. Thank you.
Vice President Huang, if you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Just wanted to echo exactly what Commissioner Ono said. This is there's a lot of work that goes into this, both logistically, the actual content of the work itself, but also emotionally. It is a draining process, and so thank you to everyone involved for putting this through. I know also that Maureen and other folks on the team have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to help make this happen as well. So thank you to the staff, thank you to the committee for being invested in this, and also thank you to the leadership for sponsoring this work and creating the space for this to happen. It's for every one organization that does create the space, there are many more out there, unfortunately, that don't yet. And so I'm proud to be affiliated with an organization that is committed to pushing this forward. I'm in full support of this resolution, and I cannot wait to vote yes.
Thank you so much, Vice President Wong. If Commissioner Lopez would unmute yourself to make your statement or comment.
Thank you. I just want to thank all the people, all the members that have worked on this resolution. It is like Commissioner Wong said, it really takes an investment. You have looked at different areas and it's very inclusive. I feel that this type of work, it involves not just writing a resolution, but researching and looking at all the aspects, and also putting and bringing your own experiences through, and the experiences of others to the table. So I'm very grateful. Thank you to everyone who has worked. I'm really excited. I fully support this resolution, and we are very proud from the work that you presented. So thank you.
Thank you. Lovely comments. Commissioner Wolf, if you would unmute yourself and make your comment and or question.
Thank you. Just want to add to my fellow commissioners already said, which is thank you for this extraordinary work. But in many ways, the hard work is ahead. And these words that you struggled with to put on paper to really give meaning to them is going to require enormous amount of effort, heavy lifting, hard work, continued work, probably a few setbacks every now and again. And I just want you to know that I feel like we're behind you on this. We are with you on this, and we want to be your partners and supporters as you implement these really important and essential efforts and really work to make the words come alive and the actions make an impact. So thank you.
Very beautifully stated. Thank you so much, Commissioner Wolf. I don't see any other commissioners' hands up at this particular time. I'm just monitoring it right now because I want to make sure that if any of you have any more comments or questions, we're still in the discussion phase for the commission on this racial equity resolution that's being presented to us this evening. Commissioner Mall, if you would unmute yourself and make your comment or question. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yes. Yeah, we got.
Okay. Well, I don't really need to say anything other than what my commissioners have already said. So for fear of being redundant, I won't. But I just want to lend my support for this enormous effort. And I love it that the library has focused so much on this, and hopefully we will be setting an example for other agencies in the city. And we all know San Francisco used to pride itself on its diversity and inclusion, but we've learned that if you peel off the top layer, there is a lot of racism in our city. And I think this addresses those issues. So well done, everyone.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mall, for that strong comment. So, commissioners, I'll just say very quickly before I go through my last scan of my fellow commissioners' hands. Maureen and the whole team, I know that I don't know everyone's on the call. I know that Alejandro's on the call. I know that Jan is, but I'm not sure everyone that is working on that has worked or is part of this work that's on the call. And I know there's obviously people that are not here, but I just want to say that this is a remarkable piece of institutional capacity building. Putting these words on paper, as difficult as they will be to make them all come alive, is a lot of heavy lifting, and it takes a lot of courage to do this kind of work. And the racial equity team at the San Francisco Public Library know a thing or two about cultivating courage. And so I just want to say that I can see that. I can see how you've cultivated the courage in yourselves, and then you've poked it and spurred and helped others to cultivate their own courage. And my hope is that that this entire management team, as well as the entire library staff, will embrace this work that you have brought forward, and everybody will find their place of accountability. And because it's going to take vulnerability, it's going to take empathy, and it's going to take accountability to make this racial equity work move forward. So I just want to say thank you for all of that work that you've done. And with that, I'm going to now take it back to the commissioners, because we've now closed our discussion phase, and we have before us consideration to take action. And I'd like to see, is there a commissioner who would like to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to move to approve the resolution. Okay.
We have a motion by Commissioner John Lee to approve the motion. Is there another commissioner that would like to second?
I'll second.
Okay. Let the record show that Commissioner Susan Mall has seconded the motion. So what I'm going to do now is a roll call for the remaining commissioners. And when I call your name, you say aye or nay or no. Okay. So Vice President Huang.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez,
Aye.
and myself, Commissioner Wardell Garaduzzi, is an aye. And with that, the motion passes unanimously. So I want to thank you, Maureen Singleton, as kind of the lead member from the SFPL on the team, and thank all of you that are on the call right now. And please pass on to the ones that are not on the call how excited we are about this work, and that you have the Commission's full support to move forward with courage and accountability on your racial equity plan.
Thank you, commissioners. And I will be sure to pass along your words of encouragement and appreciation to all of the Racial Equity Committee members. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to now move on to the third item on our agenda, which is the City Librarians Report. The City Librarians Report is an opportunity for the City Librarian to give updates, make announcements, and discuss the recent library activities. So I'm going to turn it over to City Librarian Lambert.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, commissioners, for taking that strong action earlier. We really appreciate all your support. We do have a number of reports this evening. And first up, next slide, please. I'd like to highlight the annual Library Journal Movers and Shakers Awards. This honor is for members of our profession. It's memorialized every year in June. And this is the 19th year that LJ has bestowed these honors. According to the article, this year's class of movers has had little choice but to embrace change and run with it. And they've certainly risen to the challenge. Their stories offer actionable examples to replicate and adapt across a range of library environments and communities. This year's movers are doing groundbreaking work in the middle of a pandemic. End quote. And that's why I'm so proud that one of our own SFPL family members is among the 46 individuals honored this cycle in the class of 2021. Next slide, please. Shawna Sherman is San Francisco Public Library's 2021 Library Journal Mover and Shaker. Her recognition as a change agent by Library Journal comes as no surprise to those of us who know Shawna and who have worked closely with her. Shawna's dedication to serve Black youth and their families is a continuum of professional excellence embodied by Black librarians such as authors Nella Larson and Audre Lorde, as well as SFPL's own Black librarians, Effie Lee Morris and the late Linda Brooks Burton. As manager of the African American Center, Shawna has worked tirelessly to create impactful community programs to improve library supports for Black youth and families. Guided by a philosophy of embedded librarianship that seeks strategic partnership with community-based organizations, Shawna has found success by not only partnering on important events such as the annual Black Student Union Summit and the annual SFUSD Black Graduation, but also by leveraging those relationships to create programs that center racial equity and social justice. Shawna brings a deep understanding of where the community has been and has strong convictions of the supports needed to ensure racial equity remains at the center of not only her work, but the organization as a whole. A consummate professional, Shawna has drawn inspiration from her own life experiences growing up in Hawaii and as a journalist, poet, and mother to create the blueprint for a 21st century Black librarianship that centers racial equity. And Shawna is on a well-deserved vacation right now, but we all congratulate Shawna and we are all so proud of her. Well done, Shawna. All right, next slide, please. Our next report will be a presentation from our FOG Readers team. Kate Epler, Maricela Leon Barrera, Ruben Balderas, Jason Hill, and Nicole Termini Germain. Take it away, team.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, library commissioners and members of the public. My name is Marisela Leon Barrera, and I'm the literacy manager for the San Francisco Public Library, and I'm based out of the Bridge at Maine. I support Project Read, ESL tutoring, and FOG Readers, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about what FOG Readers is and what it stands for. FOG stands for Free Orton Gillingham, and Orton Gillingham is a literacy intervention program developed to support struggling readers by explicitly teaching the connections between letters and sounds. The approach combines direct, multisensory teaching strategies paired with sequential lessons focused on phonics. To give you all a little bit of a sense of how important the work is that has been happening since before the pandemic and during the pandemic, I would like to highlight a little bit of data that has been compiled by the San Francisco Unified School District. They did a reading inventory during the fall of 2020. And the reading inventory showed that 45.6% of fourth graders assessed were reading at or above proficient level. The number for socioeconomically disadvantaged students in grades 3rd through 10th came at 39.8% of students were reading at or above proficient. Just some quick math for everyone. That means that 60% of the most vulnerable students are not reading at grade level in grades 3rd through 10th. We have learned and heard a lot about summer slide in years past, but now what we're going to contend with is COVID slide, which will take quite a few number of years to be able to regain what has been lost during this time. The FOG Readers program has focused on supporting the reading intervention needs of students in grades 1st through 4th grade. And students are able to meet with tutors once a week where they get about an hour of instruction that is really geared towards making sure that they make those reading strides. This program is truly making the difference in supporting the literacy needs of our students in need here in San Francisco. And I love the opportunity to invite Nicole to let us know a little bit more about how the team has been able to reboot and re-envision this program to support the learning needs of our students.
Thank you, Marisela, and good afternoon, Commission and Library Management and public friends. Next slide, please. So, back in September, I was lucky enough to be chosen for this program-saving endeavor, and it has been quite a journey. The good fortune did not end there. We soon discovered that our team was incredibly well balanced and we worked together splendidly. Once the 4 of us were assembled, you can see us right there, we were faced with a number of challenges. But like the Super Friends, we put our capes on, our literacy capes, and conquered with courage and positivity. So, get ready to listen to these little obstacles we faced. It was the perfect storm. Laura Lay, our Learning Differences librarian, started this excellent and amazing program, but sadly, she moved on from SFPL in March 2020. Remember that, everyone? Seems like so long ago. And at that time, FOG Readers had grown so popular and so in demand that there was a very long wait list. So, COVID had disrupted all of the pairs, so that was a hot mess. The entire program had to be adapted for virtual action, which wasn't easy. You know, there's quite a few people out there like me, kind of old-fashioned, and they don't love the screen. They don't want to work with the screen, and I understand, but we had to do it to make it work, to reach the people. The team you see on the screen there, we got some intense Orton Gillingham training, which was wonderful, much appreciated, very valuable, and again, intense. We had to identify the foundations of the program and find a way to deliver it and adapt it in this new online environment that we were many of us were very new to. So, in order to keep FOG alive, we had to give it new life post-COVID, and that is what we did. So, another layer of all of this was that this flurry of chaos all took place at a critical time when kids needed even more help with reading and just academics in general. So just imagine there were many parents, yes, there were, very eager to get this amazing opportunity for their children. Little bit of more good news about the online environment that I must admit. Now the Fog Readers program is even more inclusive, as we can reach even more families who may not have been able to get to the library in time weekly, may not have been able to schlep their kids to the branch, at a certain time for whatever reason. In any case, take a look at this photo, everyone. This photo embodies the overwhelming nature of it all. But we knew how important it was to keep it alive. So once we revitalized and revamped FOG, guess what? We were then faced with the task of training hundreds of wonderful volunteers online. And we did it. It's all been quite the exciting and rewarding experience, and it still continues. Next slide, please.
All right, good evening, Commissioners, City Librarian Lambert, and library colleagues. I'm Ruben Balderas. In my regular role, I'm a teen services librarian at the Mix at the main library. But for the last 9 months, I've been lucky to be working on this fabulous program. So when we joined onto the team, there was a lot of work to do, as Nicole just laid out. But also, as Nicole always says, teamwork makes the dream work. And that's what we did. So this slide here highlights some of the work we accomplished since our team formation in September. The first, the Orton Gillingham method incorporates multisensory learning, and many of the instructional methods that a tutor would use face-to-face don't necessarily translate virtually. Like I'm thinking of an activity where a student is writing letters in the sand and the tutor's supposed to check it. You can't really hold up sand to the screen. So we spent hours literally going page by page in our 140-page curriculum and collaboratively strategizing new instructional methods that would satisfy the multisensory needs of Orton Gillingham, but also work via Zoom. We also moved our trainings to Zoom. And the benefit of that was that we were able to train more tutors at one time than we ever could before. And since we began training new tutors in December, we've trained 230 new tutors, including over 20 SFPL staff tutors. So I want to take this opportunity to thank our SFPL staff tutors. And I also want to shout out Maine Youth Center's page, Leah DeTulio, who helped our team, who's not here today. So moving on, in February, we began matching students with tutors. And to date, we've matched over 115 students. And for the last several weeks, we've actually been running where we were pre-pandemic as far as active pairs in the program. We've started getting the first quarterly updates from our earliest pairs, and they're reporting an average of over 0.7 of a grade level increase in just 3 months. And finally, but just as importantly, we ramped up the level of support offered to tutors. Some offerings that we added were regular tutor meetups via Zoom, where tutors could share tips with one another about what's working and what's not, and to ask questions of the FOG staff and the super tutors who were in attendance. And also because working virtually is new to so many people, we began offering Zoom Basics sessions to ensure that our tutors would be comfortable working virtually. This has also been helpful to the dozens of existing tutors that we inherited, whose whole experience up until the pandemic was just face-to-face tutoring. And because we're a team, we've each been able to specialize in different areas of the program. And that has actually streamlined the individual tutor support that we're able to give. And with so many new tutors in such a short time frame, there's been a lot of individual tutor support that's been needed. So I'm going to pass it along to Jason, who will talk us through our next slide.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, commissioners, Michael, colleagues, and the public. I'm Jason Hill. I'm the newly minted Early Learning Coordinator for SFPL. I'm just going to share some information that you might use to help us out. So the way that caregivers and tutors can find more information is on this slide. So you can maybe jot this down, share it with your friends, families, or people you may know that may want to tutor or have kids that need tutors. And that would be sfpl.org/FOG. And like I said, maybe some of you here have or know children that might benefit from the program. Maybe you want to become a tutor and do one of our 3-day trainings that are really, really fun. And you learn a lot, and you'll look at reading a lot differently once you learn some of the techniques that we use. The info on the website is actually in 3 languages also, because we want to be as equitable as possible and to reach more people. And they are in English, Spanish, and Chinese. And the FOG team is also able to communicate with families in those languages through email or phone calls. We really try to do a lot of outreach that way, so that the families can also benefit. And like this says, tutoring is going to be online via Zoom until SFPL libraries are fully open, or until we could have the students sit in the library for an hour, because that's how long the tutoring sessions take. If you have teens that need some volunteer hours at school, or a lot of the seniors want to come in, and in the summer they usually help us with some stride, but that's not happening. So they can get summer volunteer hours by signing up to be FOG tutors. And they are some of our best tutors, actually, that we have. They're just so dedicated and very smart. And students really love the teen volunteers. And lastly, if you have any questions or need more information about the program, Maricela, who we spoke earlier, is the new literacy manager at the Bridge. She can supply that information, or readers at sfpl.org. The team collects emails together, and we can help you with some of this stuff also. So thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Kate.
Thank you, Jason. And shout out to Commissioner Ono, who is also a FOG Reader tutor. My name is Kate Epler. I am the program manager for the Bridge at Maine. I oversaw the FOG Readers program from the enrollment of its very first student until very recently with our joyful addition of Maricela. I appreciate this chance to close this out today. Oh, next slide, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate this chance to close this out, which is one more note of celebration for the work that this team has done over the past year. Ruben, Jason, and Nicole poured their hearts and minds into helping FOG readers navigate some very tricky territory. The program was very disrupted by COVID. We had a lot of problems to solve, and they worked tirelessly to make it happen. And they were a joy to work with. So thank you to their chiefs for lending them out. And thank you to Ruben and Nicole and Jason for their work this year. And to Maricela for the work she's about to do. I am very grateful to you guys, and I know that the families of all the students that you managed to pair up during this difficult year appreciate you too. That's all from us. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, team. As Nicole says, I'll say it again, teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right.
That's right.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, you all are demonstrating the transformational impact of reading and literacy. So thank you so much for all your hard work and the impact that you've made this past year. All right, our next and final report today is an update on the library's reopening efforts. I'm very pleased to report that we hit a major milestone this week when we reopened floors 3 through 6 at the main library. And we've been working very hard to prepare our neighborhood branches for reopening and transitioning many of them from community learning hubs back into branch libraries. Our recently promoted Assistant Chief of the main library, Katrin Reimuller, and Chief of Branches, Kathy Del Neo, will be providing this update this evening. Katrin, I think you're up first.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, commissioners, library staff, and members of the public. It is my pleasure to share about the main library's reopening progress. Next slide, please. Here you can see some pictures of people using a printer and copier room on the 4th floor. People logged into public computers and a patron browsing the stacks. Next slide, please. So on Monday, June 14th, the Main opened the upper floors of the main library. We now have elevator access to those floors and direct access to the children's library. Patrons can enter the library at Grove and Larkin entrances. We have no capacity limit and no time limit. The to-go operation for curbside hold pickups has ceased and all holds have been moved inside to the 1st floor. We have increased access to computers from 14 computers to over 60 public terminals, including some adaptive technology computers. Computers are still available by reservation, but also for walk-up patrons when they are available. We now have over 200 reader seats for people to study and read and enjoy the library as it was intended to be enjoyed. Patrons can browse all circulating collections and now have access to reference materials as well. Additionally, the Bridge at Main, the Talking Books and Braille Center, the Mixed Teen Center, and the San Francisco History Center are open to the public. On Monday, we had 950 visitors, and the visitor count has been increasing each day. Yesterday, we had over 1,100. So the public is enjoying access to the entire main collection and the expertise of our wonderful staff. Of course, opening the main on the upper floors isn't something that was done by a few people. Tom and I want to thank everybody in the library system because it really does take everybody, especially frontline staff, facilities staff, and administrative staff like HR and finance, really everybody for getting the main library open. So I'm going to hand it over to Kathy Del Neo, our Chief of Branches, who's going to tell you what's going on in the branch division.
Thank you so much, Katrin. And it's great to hear your update. I have to say, a lot of our branch staff have shared with me how grateful they are to the team at the main library for leading the way with in-library, in-person library services. So thank you. Good evening, our commissioners, colleagues, and members of the public. As Katrin shared, my name is Kathy Del Neo. I'm the Chief of Branches. I want to thank you for this opportunity to provide an update about the phased reopening of the branch division. We have come a long way since August of last year, and we now provide SFPL to-go service in 14 branch libraries. Next slide. This coming Monday, June 21st, is a huge day for us as we will restore Holds pickup service to the Bernal Heights, Golden Gate Valley, Ingleside, North Beach, Sunset, and Western Addition communities. Starting Monday, these locations will provide SFPL to-go service Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. If you'll recall, these sites were all locations that hosted community hubs during the past school year. We are very excited to be able to provide branch library services to the public in these neighborhoods again. Next slide. Our plan is to further expand SFPL to-go service to Noe Valley, Parkside, and Presidio branches in July, staffing permitting. Next slide. In addition to the great work branch staff are doing every day by providing SFPL to-go service, the branch division has also been expanding the depth of services provided in our branch libraries. Last month, I reported out to you at the commission meeting that we launched Browse and Bounce service at our Chinatown and Mission Bay branches, so patrons can browse collections, use public computers, and pick up materials that they have on hold. I wanted to just share an update because we have some photos of the launch at Chinatown that I can share with you now on this page. You can see our patrons entering, our first two patrons at Chinatown, one of our most senior patrons who was so excited checking out. She made Michelle Jeffers take her picture about 10 times. It was adorable. And if you look on the far left, you'll see former branch manager of Chinatown branch, Lorna, who came to support her whole team on the first day. It was really great to see her. Next slide, please. I also have some photos from Mission Bay from our launch at that branch on May 18th. Families were the first groups that were coming in droves to the Mission Bay branch that day. And we got some really cute shots of little ones coming into the library for their first time with looks of awe and joy on their faces with their families. The supervisors and staff at both Mission Bay and Chinatown branch have led the way with the restoration of in-branch service, and I'm so proud of the great work that they are doing for the community. Next slide. I'm thrilled to report that we are currently gearing up to launch 4 more Browse and Bounce locations next week. On Monday, June 21st, our Excelsior, Ortega, and Richmond branches will reopen their doors to the public. And I'm sorry, I said the wrong branch. Our Visitation Valley, Ortega, and Richmond branches will open on Monday, and Excelsior will follow the next day. I do want to point out that Richmond has been a hub for the school year, and they have jumped forward, and they are going to launch the in-person service as their first opening event. The teams on site at each of these branches have been working hard and are ready to welcome the public back in for browsing, public computing, help with quick reference questions, and holds pickup. We hope that members of the public and commissioners will join us on Monday morning and Tuesday morning for some of these launches of our branch Browse and Bounce services. Next slide, please. We also plan to expand Browse and Bounce further in July, moving to our Bayview, Bernal Heights, Eureka Valley, Glen Park, Ocean View, and Western Addition branches, and ultimately launching our in-branch service Browse and Bounce at all of our sites in the early fall. Like all of our reopening plans, these dates are contingent upon having appropriate staffing in place. In addition to welcoming back more long-deployed branch division staff who have been serving as disaster service workers, we are also working with colleagues in human resources to fill the many vacant positions in the branch division. I want to take a moment to share with you that I continue to be impressed by the can-do attitude of our dedicated branch staff, and I really appreciate the efforts that they've put into safely restoring library services over the past many months since March 2020. On behalf of the entire branch division, I also want to thank all of the library staff from other divisions who support our work, including colleagues in custodial and security, public affairs and graphic design, the main library staff, finance staff, facilities office team, human resources, CPP in general, and of course the City Librarians office. We appreciate the support you have continued to provide throughout our reopening process. I'll be here to take any questions after the public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrin, and thank you, Kathy. I appreciate all your hard work and leadership. I do want to emphasize that our July and August schedule for reopenings and our plans are still dynamic. They're subject to change based on the availability of staff. We still have approximately 22.7% of our workforce unavailable due to a combination of continued disaster service worker activations and considerable position vacancies that we're working hard to fill. We are still navigating the rapidly shifting public health guidance. And, there's word today in the media that Cal OSHA has updated their regulations for employers with respect to masking and physical distancing. So we're going to have to process that information and work with our Department of Human Resources and the Office of the City Administrator to understand, how that can impact our operations. But I do want to thank our labor partners for offering their continued input on our plans and how we may adjust them for July. And perhaps even accelerate the transition to in-person services where and when it makes sense. And that concludes the City Librarians Report.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you so much to your team members who were all part of that robust City Librarians Report. There's a lot there. But before we go into our commission discussion, we're going to go to a public comment on this item, number 3, which is the City Librarians Report. So I'm going to go over to check in with operations and to see if there are any callers in the queue.
Madam President, we have 2 callers in the queue.
Great, thank you. Would you put the first caller through?
Caller number 5, your 3 minutes begin now.
Good afternoon. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. We are, of course, very happy that there's progress being made toward greater opening and that the main library has all floors, possibly with the exception of the kids, I'm not sure, open. Unfortunately, there's a great deal of limitation, and of course the first question is, when is full service happening? We have heard June 15th as basically the day when everything is opening up in California. What about the library? I believe the library is an essential service and should be open with full service in all of its activities. First of all, for example, the hours are still amazingly limited. There is not a single minute of open evening hours. We call after 6 open. There's nothing open past 5:30. There's apparently no plans with respect to news, magazines, and newspapers. Current materials being available in a time when so much, let's just say, bad stuff has been available on the internet as an alternative for news and other kinds of information. The library is critical for providing daily papers, weeklies, monthlies, and that's not happening. We have some availability on the main floor, for example, at the main library, but those are not current, and I don't see any newspapers. It was great to be able to do some of the functions we've done before, but they have been changed in radical ways, and unfortunately, I don't believe that the staff has been prepared for this. This is not to criticize the staff, but the management for not preparing them with manuals, with training, and so on and so forth. So there's problems with the copiers, there's problems with the computers. Just today, all the library's computers went down, apparently, including at reference desks. Why was there no announcement? People had to try and kind of figure it out for themselves. The copiers, once again, have not apparently had input from staff or the public in their selection. Very tragically, there is no 11 by 18, basically 2 11.5 by 8.5 size. You can't put an art book down on the glass and do 2 pages at once. Free copies, 100 a day, great. But when I tried to print a 140-page manual, I discovered I could print 0 because it wasn't taking over 100 pages nor taking money. So there's a whole range of problems. We need full service. We need a spreadsheet showing when the branches are going to be opening, and we need live programs.
Thank you.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Operations, would you put the next caller through, please?
Caller Alex Walker, you're next. 3 minutes are starting now.
Good afternoon, and thank you, commissioners. My name is Alex Walker. I'm speaking first in my capacity as Senior Field Representative in the Office of State Assembly Member Phil Ting. I want to first thank all the staff for all the work through the pandemic and for putting together this reopening plan. But I just want to say that I hope that there would be a way to increase public computing at more branches. First of all, we help a lot of people who are having issues with EDD, with unemployment, and I myself personally have helped hundreds of constituents, and I see the digital divide, people who have internet access at home versus people who do not when it comes to accessing and certifying for unemployment. So having more public computing, I think, is really essential as we continue to reopen, as people still are continuing on unemployment. Also, you know, with the hours that we're seeing with reopening, with working people having at least some hours, you know, a little bit later in the day for them to be able to come and to return or to get on the public computing or whatever it may be. I can just say myself as I return to work, I'm hoping that with the reopening either for to-go or for the browse, for the libraries to be able to have to be able to return books outside the hours, because right now if I go to the Dropbox are only open during library hours, and as more of us go back to work and are not around during the day to from Tuesday through, or maybe you had to go on Saturday to return books to the drop box. Hoping those will be open more evening hours as well. So I just want to say I do commend you for all of your work, but I do hope that when it comes to computing, when it comes to our hot weather we're going to have coming up soon, we need we might need cooling centers. I hope there's been preparation for that as part of your opening plan as well. But yeah, I just want to drive the point home that with the digital divide that we've seen, hoping the more public computing is at least part of something that you can bring to more branches. I know that you're only just getting some now to go, but I hope that's something that you think about as a priority when you're reopening. And again, thank you all for your service, and thank you. I know it's been tough on your staff as well.
Thank you so much for that call. Thank you. Operations, are there any other callers in the queue?
Madam President, we have one more caller in the queue.
Thank you. Would you put the caller through, please?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Naima Dean, and I work for San Francisco Public Library, and we are getting ready to open SFPL To Go this coming Monday at the Western Edition branch, and looking forward to meeting our community once again. I want to thank the city librarian for pointing out in our plans for reopening that there are some considerations that do need to be made on behalf of the services we are able to provide, because much of our staff is still out there serving as DSW, contact tracers and whatnot, and also reacclimating with coming back into the library. So I appreciate that acknowledgement and consideration. I wanted to also acknowledge and applaud the hard work that has been done by the FOG Readers Group. I know how much that work entails, from doing growing readers for many years prior and from working to transition that to FOG Readers. I heard that certification was part of the process. I am hoping that the 4 tutors that we saw received full and formal certification that they can add to their resume, not just tidbits of training, but actual certification, because it is important, especially as we continue to grow our tutoring efforts. And I wanted to be sure that many of the tutors that are being used to teach kids are tutors of color, and that the students that are getting matched with those tutors are also tutors of color. Many of the children in our equity-based zones may not have the technology needed to meet with in these circumstances. So it will be good when we do provide in-person services again, but in the interim, I just think that's an important thing. I also wanted to give a shout out to Shawna Sherman for all the hard work and acknowledge her amazing award. It's not enough. She deserves much more. She played a major role in this this racial equity resolution, as did the Racial Equity Committee at large. And it is a lot of extra work, as stated by yourself, I think, Commissioner Wardell, that Black and Brown folks have a lot to carry in this city. And Commissioner Moll said that the inequities do exist. And though we have a resolution, it's great, we support it. I know it was well thought out because I know the players that contributed. Words are beautiful. We have libraries full of them. Action is everything. And putting those words to action means so much. I also want to say that
your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everything you do, Naima. Operations, are there any further commenters in the queue?
Madam President, there are no commenters in the queue.
Just wait a moment to see if there's anyone else that might just come. Operations, is there any other commenters in the queue?
Madam President, there are no commenters in the queue.
Okay, hearing that there's none, public comment on this item now closed. So, commissioners, we are going to move into just a discussion of the city librarian's report. There is a lot of content there. As at the top of the report, you heard about one of our own was acknowledged nationally. Shawna Sherman as a mover and shaker in the industry. I know that that's pretty awesome. I know that she's on vacation today, but I wanted to see if any commissioner had any questions or comments to make to the city librarian or any of those individuals that are here with us today. I think the report was really great, right? Commissioner Wolf is given applaud in sign language. So I think that we are going to then move on. Michael, I want to thank you for a fabulous report. Oh no, Commissioner Lopez. We're not going to close quite yet. Go ahead, Commissioner Lopez. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say thank you for everyone that reported today. Lots of information and great information. I want to congratulate the team of the FUG readers. I know how important it is and the impact that, you know, learning how to read and doing it effectively will change the kid's life, because it makes an impact. And I appreciated the statistics that you provided from the school district to see, you know, the need and how you're stepping in to support our children. So thank you. And I just wanted to say that because I really, you know, feel that the work, it will have long-term results. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Lopez. City Librarian Lambert.
Thank you for the feedback. We really appreciate your support, Dr. Lopez. And I just want to acknowledge the members of the public that have called in. I hear you. And with the recent changes with the Cal OSHA regulations today, we are going to look at how we can accelerate restoration of service, including more access to our computers. You know, with the removal of physical distancing as a public health requirement, you know, we're going to be in a better position to have seating available when we open up our branches for in-person service. And we will not have to worry about spacing out access to our computer terminals. So we will be able to quickly restore full access that people are accustomed to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm just monitoring my list here. Doing a final scan very carefully. And I don't see any hands up at this time. So again, I want to thank all of you that participated in the giving us good feedback on the activities of the library for this period of time. We want to thank you again. We appreciate you so much. And we're going to continue. And thank you for the reopening plan. It's so exciting to see the next phases of reopening the library. We heard the members of the public that talked about, you know, the importance of ensuring that these stations are available, particularly for individuals who do not have internet at home. And so we hear all those things, and we're just so excited that we're making progress and under Michael's leadership on these things every day, every week. So with that, we're going to move on to item number 4 of our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of May 2021. This is an item that requires action by the commission. Before we move to that action, we are going to go to public comment on this item. Operations. Are there any callers in the queue?
Madam President, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, let's just wait a moment to see if folks been able to get, particularly folks that are dialing in, give them a chance to dial in.
Madam President, there is one caller in the queue.
Great. Would you put the caller through, please?
Caller number 5, your 3 minutes begin now.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and also P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. These minutes seem to be radically different from prior minutes. It's almost a game, it seems, to submerge what the main point or the real point is of people speaking. On agenda item number 1, my comment was that the library service is unfortunately very limited, as the library acknowledges. I don't have to tell the library that it's limited. They know that very well, and all of you do too. It's unfortunate that it's as limited as it is. That was the point there, and it's missed completely in the summary. On public comment, for the next item, too, summer and so on, he also shared that in the 14 months since COVID started, he has gotten 2 letters from the library. Well, what's the deal there? The deal there is that I got those 2 letters like everybody else on the mailing list, while the email people got weekly and monthly detailed letters about changes in service, improvements, openings, programs, on and on, every week, every month. And the folks on the mailing list completely disparately got 2 letters. That's the point there. With respect to public comment on City Librarian's report, it says he is disappointed the library seems slow in opening compared to other libraries, not areas, and with Tech Week. Well, I was much stronger about Tech Week. I said I was very concerned that Tech Week had only a single program that I could find on tech problems such as privacy issues for the users. And that's a serious issue with your glorification of everything computer and not being adequately clear on what the many problems are with computers. Item 4, approval of the minutes. The point that I was making was not that nobody elected the city librarian and the mayor appointed the city librarian. It's that the library has claimed this is the most democratic of institutions. And my point was, no, it's not. And that's just one reason why. On adjournment, I said, this is a time that you should insist on taking up talking about what you want at future meetings, and you should not adjourn until this has been reinstated for all future agendas. I'm sorry to say that I think if there was a report being made about Abe Lincoln, it might say that he had an interesting way to refer to the number.
3 minutes are up.
Thank you so much. Operations, is there any further callers in the queue?
Madam President, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Hearing that there's none, we're going to go ahead and close public comment on this particular item. Commissioners, you have before you the minutes of May 2021. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion?
Yes, given that the minutes seem to accurately reflect what was stated in the meeting itself, I move to approve the minutes as given.
Okay.
I second.
I second.
Okay. I heard 3 I seconds. Which one of you would like to? I think they all came at the same time. Commissioner Lopez, Maul, and Wolf. Which one of you?
I can second it.
All right, that's Commissioner Lopez. I second it. For the remainder commissioners, I'm going to call you by your name, and when you hear me call your name, say aye or no. Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall. Commissioner Mall, would you unmute yourself? Oh, I can see your mouth moving. Okay,
Aye.
There we go. All right, Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
And Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Okay, and then I'll go ahead and acknowledge myself. Commissioner Wardell is an aye as well. So the motion unanimously passes to accept the minutes of May 20th, 2021. So thank you, commissioners, for that. And we'll move on to the final item of our agenda, which is adjournment. And with that, we will go into our final public comment of the evening. Operations. Are there any commenters in the queue?
Madam President, there is one commenter in the queue.
Thank you. Operations, would you put the commenter through?
Caller number 5, your 3 minutes begin now.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004 at yahoo.com and also by U.S. Postal Service at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. In the past, this body, as I have said many times before, used to have an item at or near the end of the meeting where you would say what you would like at future meetings of the Library Commission on the agenda for discussion or action. Other bodies routinely have that on their agenda as well. I think you are cheating the public, who you're supposed to represent, when you don't insist that you have that opportunity. Typically at any meeting, there might be things that come up that would be appropriate or interesting or valuable or just somebody thinks useful to bring up at a future meeting or maybe in a particular meeting in the future. And when you don't have that on your agenda, you're cutting yourselves and those you represent out of that bit of democracy, that bit of helping to set the agenda just for your own meetings. Today there were a variety of issues that came up, and I certainly think the omission of the Sunshine Task Force loss and the finding of the Commission in violation for not providing reasonable public comment opportunity is certainly something that I would imagine and think that somebody, and maybe all of you, would want to hear more about and discuss. You like to claim, or used to claim, that it was the most democratic of institutions. If you don't even follow the law with public comment and with public access, that's a problem. That certainly contradicts what you've said, and it certainly contradicts the law, and it should be something that I would imagine folks would be interested in looking into and fixing. So that would be certainly a topic that I think would be useful to take up at a future meeting, just as an example. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Operations, are there any further callers in the queue?
Madam President, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Hearing that there's none, we will bring our final public comment to a close. Commissioners, is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion to adjourn? Is that Commissioner Wolf?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to adjourn today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a second on that?
John, second.
Okay, that's Commissioner Lee. Let the record show. And so the remaining commissioners, I will call you by your name. When you hear me call your name, say aye or no to adjourn. Commissioner Huang?
Aye.
Commissioner Mall?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
And Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
I will register myself, Commissioner Wardell, as an aye. The motion to adjourn unanimously passes. I want to thank you all, including and particularly the members of the public who have stayed with us and have been with us for this meeting. I want to thank all the members of the San Francisco Public Library who are on this meeting, presenting or supporting it or just listening in. Thank you again for all the work that you do, and we look forward to seeing you soon as we continue to reopen the libraries and as San Francisco continues to reopen. And I'll say one thing, while we were in the meeting, Mayor Breed sent out a notice to the city employees to say that today she signed a proclamation recognizing the new Juneteenth federal holiday tomorrow. And that proclamation is now available on the city's website. So thank you all. Enjoy Juneteenth tomorrow and have safe celebrations this weekend.